This is for the public hearing on the water main block grant. We'll wait and do our pledge until we get to the regular meeting. If you are aware or not aware, we are seeking $744,844 in a community development block grant to make improvements and replace existing undersized and deteriorated water mains in the existing system on West Park and Brook Streets and 2 alleys within the village. The purpose of the public hearing is for anyone to ask questions if you have questions. And at this point, I open the meeting up to any questions. Anyone has any questions? Okay, Jennifer, would you like to say something?
I've had the opportunity to work with Village of Central Lake to first start the Part 1 application, and that was well received from MEDC. And I do have copies of both the Part 1 application and Part 2 application here, along with design drawings and specifications if anyone's interested to look at them. They're available for the public, and we'll leave them here tonight too. The next step moving forward, all this stuff going through environmental review as well, and everything is intended for the Part 2 application to submit on September 9th to the state. And then at that point, they'll review all the information and making sure everything's in order. Their intentions are to formally approve and recommend funding to the village in the end of September. And then the intended goal for the project is to be completed by December of next year.
Council have any questions? No questions from the audience? Need a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Motion to adjourn public hearing. Support.
And moved and supported by Patton. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Now, I'll call the regular meeting to order and we'll stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Hopper.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Patton.
Here.
Tyler.
Yep.
Zona.
Here.
Becker.
Yes. Need approval of the agenda. We have a couple of additions. We've got under action item C, water main replacement grant. And under new business, we have private well, but that's going to require an action on our part, so that moves down to D in the action items, private well. Anybody else have any further? Okay, we'll move on. Need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll move that motion. Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion has carried. Need a motion to approve the minutes of July 13th, 2016 meeting.
So moved.
Any support?
Support.
Bobby supported. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public comment? Report. Scott, please.
Thank you. First of all, I'll apologize for my absence last month, but it was not for, it's a good cause. Last month I wasn't here because of baseball, and we ended up winning the championship altogether. So we actually won the semifinals, which was on the board meeting night. Transferred over a couple days later and actually went to the finals and actually won the championship. So, so it was a good time. This month, obviously, got a report on. I actually shipped a report to you guys last month. I didn't know if anybody had any questions. I didn't get any calls or any comments or concerns, so I assumed that everything was okay. So in front of you, you have this month's report. It's starting to get busy. It was busy last month. We're just kind of trying to catch up and stay ahead of things. One thing I can report back to you is that our new guy is on board. He's kind of working more independently on his own, and I gave him a task last week of, I think we went around and got 13 or 14 ordinance issues, and he cleaned them all up, and they're all surprisingly kind of right on track where we need to be. So we're still working on probably about 5 or 6 of them that we're, but nowhere near where we were, last year when we were doing 50, 60 at a time. So we got them down to a small little handful of ones that we're really working on. So that's good news. It's kind of freed up a lot of time that I'm doing or have to do on other things. So it's working out really well. So it's kind of a good story. But as on vacation, he calls me and tells me about a complaint he's working on, and so I'm listening to the story, listening to what he's got to tell, and waiting for him to be done so I can tell him what to do. And at the end, he's like, "Well, this is what I did," and I'm like, "Well, that's exactly what I would have told you to do." So it's working out really well to have him here as far as his experience and just his drive and stuff like that. So it's going really good. So everything else is in front of you. 4th of July went really well. We were busy all day, but it went really well, just like everything in the past. So just working on getting things caught up in the reports. Just seems like every time we get a report done, there's 2 more to catch up with it. So it's a good kind of busy though. So. Any questions?
Could you just elaborate a little bit on the peddler ordinance and the
Okay, yeah, that's kind of been a hot topic.
situation and all of that went down, so
Yeah.
people kind of...
Once in a while we'll have issues when people come to town, and that's kind of the whole purpose of the peddler's ordinance. When I came to you guys, what was it, 3 years ago, I think it was originally, because we'd have people come to town, and it would kind of really concern people as far as who are they, and in a small town it's kind of more noticeable than if it was downtown Detroit. The reason for the peddler's ordinance is that we can kind of keep track of who's coming, who's going, and stuff like that. So when we had this latest storm, there was a group of people that came through, and per our ordinance, that they have to make application to the village and kind of tell us who they are, show us that they have a building license, they're insured, we kind of know what they're driving, who they are, and stuff like that. So the fact that these people came to town is not a bad thing, but and I had to go kind of play catch up with, I think we had like 5 or 6 different companies. We had to go find them and remind them, hey, the village has an ordinance, they weren't aware of it. But I think they've been into other jurisdictions where they had them, they just needed to be reminded. So we kind of got them all on board, got them in, and I think to this date we've only had 4 of them that actually came in and actually applied for and got the permits. So I'm not aware of anybody else that is working. I've had a couple people actually call me from out of the village saying, hey, we got them too, and I'm like, okay, that's the township, this is the village, and and I'm not discouraging by all means, and that's the conversation I had with the newspaper is that by all means we do not discourage people to do business in town. We just want to make sure that they're following whatever ordinance or their issues. And the companies that I talked to, they weren't opposed to that, and they understood the reason why. So we were able to document things and give them the permit that they needed and to move on from there. But yeah, kind of people got a little misinformed or underinformed, and trying to catch them up to speed. I even had a call today about people, some of these businesses and stuff like that. So
Cool, thank you.
So Scott, a follow-up on that. So I'm looking at the peddler ordinance right here, 23.4. So each one of these outfits for roofing, they came in and had a photograph taken within 60 days prior to the date of the application was filed?
Yeah.
2 inches by 2 inches and all that?
well, I modified that part of it. I just made them show
So we
me that
should,
they
we
have
should
available.
modify this then too.
Yeah.
Because it continues on with fingerprints.
Yeah, we'll catch up with that, because a lot of it's not really relevant. All I did is basically grab a picture ID from them, was able to
Okay,
run them.
and then they just filled this out.
Correct.
All right. So they don't have to jump through all these
No, and
veteran peddler.
once things calm down, we'll go back and address that,
All right,
because it
cool.
could be cleaned up and addressed. But in the big scope of the theory there, we kind of did the same thing. Honestly, by getting fingerprints doesn't do anything. I can't run fingerprints, but I can run their name and their address and all that thing through lien and make sure they're not wanted or criminals on the run. So, if that makes any sense. So.
Anybody have any other questions? Thank you, Scott.
Great, thank you.
Sam?
Everybody has a copy of DPW report. Second round of lead and copper sampling has been done. Report's been filed with the DEQ. Second round of water quality sampling's been sent and filed with the DEQ. The generator we put in at the 2A well, it was a couple weeks ago we had the power outage. Generator come on just like it was supposed to. Fortunate, the well was in the run mode at the time and the well come right back on and we never had a glitch. So So I was very happy with that. I know I told you guys that we were having a tough time figuring out what was wrong with the loader. So what we did is we took the loader up to the work and play shop in Atwood. We drove it up there, it was a 45-minute ride up there. It turned out to be a $249 bill to get it repaired, is all it was. So it's up and ready for winter. And number 14, playground equipment. We had a little bit of vandalism down at the park on some playground equipment. We got it all put back together, so nobody knows it, but I just wanted to let you guys know that we did have a little bit of vandalism. Rachel received the phone call, and I went right down, and two pieces of playground equipment got broke. How they did it, I do not know. It's got them hex-headed bolts with them recessed sleeves that go in them, so the Allen wrench has got to have holes in both ends, and somehow they got them out. I don't know how. And that's, the nuts and bolts are something we check every spring to make sure we have them tight. But the kids just got mean with it. Any questions?
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Lyle?
Month of July was a big month for us. We were full completely. We had 322 adults and there were 74 children that were registered. And most of these people have other ones come in that aren't registered. We've had a little problem down at the bathhouse. We've had plugging issues. Sam come down and helped on the urinal the other day. That was plugged up again. We've had some stuff happening up to the day park also in the bathrooms up there. I've had probably 5 or 6 plug ups in the last 3 weeks up there. And this past weekend was a rough weekend. We were extremely busy. We had 3 reunions, 2 in the day park, 1 in the Lions Pavilion, plus they had the chamber there. And I had one group that was camped in the campground that also had a reunion outside of our area. But we had 7, 8 sites taken up by that group. We were full. I had people running all over. Other than that, doing pretty good. We've had 781 adults in that campground, 194 kids registered so far this year.
Any questions for Lyle?
When you say plugged ups, is it, do you think it's on purpose or accidental?
Well, it's hard to determine.
Yeah.
You can go up there and you see a roll of toilet paper in there, you know, and you kind of figure it's on purpose. But, you know, it still takes time to unplug it, and it still makes bad for our people. You know, it's just something we gotta contend with.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's a plumbing problem or if it's a people problem.
It's not a plumbing problem.
Okay.
Sam replaced 2 of the toilets up there in the day park. We've worked on the ones in the, at the campground. I don't believe it's a plumbing problem. I think it's maybe carelessness or even maybe some intentional stuff. I cautioned the kids this last weekend about playing in the bathrooms. We have a problem with kids playing in the bathrooms, both at the day park and the campground. That can be a lot of our problem. I don't know.
Laura, can I have something for a second there? Do you think maybe a rule there that children under a certain age must be accompanied by adults to the bathroom could help?
Well, I really thought about that over there. We have problems right now. Parents are not looking after their kids like they ought to be. Last weekend I had 2 little ones. One about 5 years old was up to the chin in the water, no burn around. Her little brother was out there up to his waist before I got down there. I sent them back to the pavilion where their reunion was. And I turned around and looked, and their brother and his sister was out there with life jackets. in the same area. Parents were not around, parents were out in the boat, cruising around in the boat. They left those poor kids in charge of whoever. But we do have trouble with the parents and the kids and the bathroom. I don't know what kind of age we'd put on it, but there should be some. I don't know how you go about it, but that is a situation. I don't know how many times I went up there to open the bathroom doors for kids that were trying to get in. And they were young, 4 or 5 years old. One was even 2 years old. But that's what we contend with.
Any other questions? Thank you, Lyle. Correspondence. The Michigan Municipal League annual meeting is September 14th on Mackinac Island. I don't intend to attend. I don't know if any of you are looking to attend.
What is it?
September 14th. And if any
Accommodations?
Well, it's either out of the village's pocket or your pocket. So if you intended to go, let us know. Okay, since nobody's attending, this is rather meaningless, so.
I'll read it.
You got one in your back.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
So I got it was very meeting.
Yeah, we got a notice from Public Service Commission that DTE is seeking gas cost recovery, costs and revenues for 12 months ending March 31st, 2016. If anybody wants to attend, that's in Lansing on September 1st at 9 a.m. We got a brochure and a letter for pipeline awareness. If anybody is interested in this information, let me know. That's all the correspondence. Committee reports, Rob?
We heard anything from Mike, Sam?
Yes, I heard 5 o'clock today, he gave me a jingle, he said, he was
Take it away.
hoping the last week of August to get in town and start pulverizing. And then the 1st of September, get in with motor grader, grade everything out and have it all paved before school opens.
And that's the fall paving schedule. That would be the green one. That I passed out last one.
Yellow is next year because of water main.
Correct.
Anything else, Rob?
Nope.
Brian, sewer and water?
I don't have any.
Bill, law enforcement? Melissa, communication?
You all have a copy of it, I'll just go over it really quickly. We met Monday, Joe, Rob, and I. Our old business is, we've been discussing developing an emergency and general information text program to enable the village to send text messages to the cell phones of people who request to be added to a village use only database. We looked at 3 different companies with various pricing structures and services, and we opted for one that is free. No cost to us at all. We get 1 keyword, which should probably be Central Lake Village CLVC Council info. And then what happens is you text to that number, and then you get added to the database. We talked about amending the village internet communication policy, but there's some more to look at on that, so we need a little bit more time. Email database development, similar to the texting program where we start collecting emails from people so that we can email them newsletters or information or friendly reminders if there's a meeting tonight. Email newsletter, that's something that we're still kind of pondering a little bit. And new business, we talked about web cameras in the village. And some time ago, I think it was probably about 3 years ago, we talked about it, but the cost was a little bit high and nobody was really sure how to do it, so it kind of came back to us to think about it a little bit, and with Lyle mentioning the people problems and the vandalism at the park and some other situations in town, that might be a really good idea for us to look at that, so I've talked to Chris Corbett, who is kind of the geeky guy, and he's gonna have somebody send us this. You describe it as like a periscope, you know, where you look through it and it will tell you how far the camera will show, what type of camera we may need and where to place them and so forth. So we're hoping within about the next 60 days, we can come back and say that it would cost X amount of dollars, here's where we would put them. Is it a good idea or a bad idea? And that's all I got.
Any questions from Melissa?
Melissa, if you talk with Chris again on that, it would just be something to think about, maybe finding out part of the cost of a rotating or mobile camera for the downtown area. Rather than
He
specific.
kind of got a napkin out and wrote a bunch of stuff
Okay.
down, so I'm pretty confident that he'll come up with a multi-interesting plan.
Big brother watching you. Finance and personnel, Joe Bob.
Fairly quiet, the audit came back, there was a higher cost of doing the audits this year due to some newer funds being added to campground, being broke out and different things, so there was a slightly higher cost to it than normal. That'll all be reflected in the next budget, I'm sure. Recommendations coming back from the audit, the main ones, most I believe have been addressed and at least discussed. I'll hit them real quick. There was a recommendation on processing fees in the campground, knowing that this audit came well over a year ago, and so it was last year's stuff, not this year's stuff that we would be discussing in this. I believe it's already been discussed with the parties involved and corrected even, but that was in their recommendation. They recommended that we do bank recs more often, and another recommendation they had was time clocks for employees. Again, these are all the recommendations of the auditors.
You're on
On the last page. of
the handout,
Yes.
so
July
bank
15th.
reconciliation,
I
revenue
believe.
deposits.
Everybody on the council got one of them, yep. Yeah, if you look at bank break, let's see.
Deposits,
Yep,
campground processing fees.
yep, time card keeping. So remember the main ones. Most everything else in this audit has been standard issue for a long time, obviously. Ever since the council implemented a single person as clerk treasurer, that's always been an issue with Minskis. There's no double checking of things. It's the way we've decided to do business, but again, it's always included in the audit since that implementation. Other than that, there really was nothing out of the ordinary in the audit that I found.
Well, I read the audit, and on page 3, it says, the one line item, culture and recreation. What, is that similar to parks and recreation? Do we have a museum I don't know about?
Culture and work, yeah.
Page 3, statement of activities, year on February 29. These are the numbers,
Oh,
financial statement.
I'm sorry.
I've never seen it in the last year.
See it?
Page 3.
Under primary government.
Cultural and recreation. I would believe that the culture and recreation is part of our parks, yes,
Is it just campground? Okay.
yes,
The numbers would reflect that.
yeah. I believe that's how they do it, is, they don't state it as campground. Mr. Numbers, did you find anything else?
No, we'll go over things later.
Okay.
Well, I just have a little question on the deposits. How often do we do those?
The deposits?
Yeah, is that like a weekly thing?
Well, there's always variables to them, as I talked with Rachel earlier. There's sometimes that we don't have a deposit made. There's other times that we get monies coming in, but she's in the middle of, say, water billings, and so deposits sometimes aren't necessarily done in the timely manner that they recommend, but they are always in. But we have discussed that, we've discussed the monthly bank reconciliations, and I believe most all of it was addressed that she's already caught up on them, everything is there, and And,
So do we say like we'll stick them in once a week or?
it's,
Well,
if,
he,
go ahead.
can I
Yeah,
speak first? The thing for the deposits was, there was one that I had sit in there for a little while because I didn't know where to put it, and as far as like money's coming in. And that was the only thing that stuck out to him, and I told him, and I talked to him last week when he came in, and I said, I'm not gonna make daily deposits, I'm not gonna make weekly deposits. If I have a chunk of stuff that needs to be deposited, that's when I do my deposits. And, cause I was like, I'm not gonna do a $10 deposit because it's just a lot of paperwork. And he's like, I understand, and that's completely fine. He was just referring to one specific thing that sat there for a while because I didn't know where to put it.
Yeah, well, I have had a couple of friends who've paid their water bill or a tax thing, and it took a little bit of time for their check to get cleared. So that's what I'm saying, even if it's once a week, you know, so we can balance our checkbooks, not 2 weeks later.
I
No-
understand that, I had
no
the same thing
offense
paying
at all, but-
taxes, but the township was the same way
Yeah.
as the village, and it set me back a little
Well,
bit,
you
I
know,
understand.
once a week or something to try to, so we can balance. our
State of
stuff.
Michigan's like 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just got my kids.
We'll sit down and maybe discuss something that can work to really go
Yeah,
through properly.
just I think it's a
and work.
comfort level for people to know that their check is cleared and not lost, or figure out how much money they still got in the bank, so.
And I do get calls from people that say, you know, I sent in my water bill, you know, have you deposited my check? And I can look right through everything, and usually it has gone, I have turned it in, but they have a process for that, they have. So,
Okay, well, that'd be cool to look at, thanks.
And that I have nothing else.
Rachel and I seem to recollect that the auditor stated the time clock, punching in and punching out issue revolved around the use of the equipment and the equipment fund. Sam and the boys would just put down an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, and he thought it would best serve us if we said loader 9:15 a.m. till 11:15 a.m. at the park, or something of that nature, just to be more specific, so we would know what was going on. So that was more than that. That didn't really include worker employment. or
Right, it
hours.
was more on the.
It was more on the equipment than anything. We
Right,
wanted us to be more accountable for the hours we write down on the equipment.
correct, correct.
That's what that was. Because he called me and I talked to him quite length with
A
him.
few of us have already discussed that same thing, of how that would help with anything else, so.
Taylor?
All right, since we have on new business, the campsites at the top of the hill, I won't go into that now, but we do have a problem with the bathrooms down there. We talked about having a camera set up out there that we could kind of keep tracks of who goes in and out of that bathroom up there. It is being used, but it's being torn up a bit too, and it's a lot of work to get those cleaned up.
We have to look at the legalities of pointing a camera at the bathrooms. I'm not sure we can point a camera directly at the door.
Well, we talked about putting it out by the pavilion and then cut it so it angled around, not just the door itself, but angled around. It wouldn't necessarily be the bathroom door itself, but in that area.
I think we should probably look at legal to find out if
Malls
we're
do it all the
even,
time.
what's that?
Malls do it all the time.
So you can view the door itself, but you can't view the inside.
That's what I'm
No,
saying.
that's what we're
Right,
talking
right,
about,
just
is the
outside the
outside.
perimeter, not inside at all.
Where would the monitors be?
We talked about putting one out at the end of the pavilion so that it would angle from this,
No, I mean-
He's
lake.
talking about who
Oh.
will watch
Who's
the
gonna,
video.
who's gonna look at the video?
Oh.
And when I mentioned these things to Corbett, he suggested we have one system just for the bathrooms down there that runs on a DVD recording system that Rachel would be able to observe or Lyle would be able to observe.
Or Scott.
Or Scott, whoever.
We could put a tower, basically a computer monitor, in the back room of the bathroom setups when they're built or whatever.
Well, they might
And
even be
it
able to
would be
look
all digital
online.
video, and, I mean, they're easy to download. if there's no vandalism, every 24 hours you can have it erased, or 48 or 72, whatever we set up for that time frame, whatever that spacing is. If we don't recognize any vandalism, it erases and starts recording again. So it's a little repetition.
Months ago, we had the sheriff's department, which down there, and they were questioning some people down there, and first thing the deputy asked me is, have you seen the sign that you got up down there, smile, you're on a candid camera, you know? He says, you guys tape this? He says, if you do, we'd like a tape. Of course we did. But, and I don't know what that was
Right.
transpired there, just what question me.
But it's different than watching a door that in an 8-hour period, you've got 40 people coming in and out of the bathroom.
Right.
So how do you see who actually plugged the toilet? I mean, you're probably going to, I mean, you can make a list of suspects, but you're not going to be able to say at 3:45, this is the person that plugged that toilet. Unless
No,
you're
if it
truly.
gets plugged 10 times and that person's in that frame 10 times, there's, I mean,
Sure. I'm
then
just saying,
you can
You're
ask
really-
them if they've seen anybody,
You have to set up a monitoring schedule and
so.
then compare it to the videotape.
But something has to be done to correct the problem. It's a serious problem.
You know, in the mention, I waved my hand when you said something about kids in the bathroom under an age or something like that. Or maybe you just make it a rule at the park that you can't be there unless you got adult supervision or something.
Because I've seen them signs at other campgrounds that show unsupervised children.
And the problem-
What do you say to a 5-year-old who comes and says, mister, can you open the bathroom? I gotta go potty. You just tell them no?
The problem you got is just, there's just a lot of people that come and go from there, and, you know, Lyle keeps track of it, I keep track of it, I'm sure that the other guys go by there and keep track, but it's just the people that are hanging out there that.
So many people in and out this time of the year.
We're obviously gonna have problems, and so we're just gonna work through, all we can do is try to limit the amount of problems that we have.
Sure.
Is the Parks Committee like looking into them more and is that price up on them?
That falls under the communications, that's gonna be.
Oh, we're gonna do that.
Cameras are gonna fall under
Okay,
communications.
Right.
Okay, wonderful.
What about the Wi-Fi at the campground? Corey was gonna look into that.
It's
From-
taken
Yep.
care of, it's working good.
Yeah, from what I understand, talking with Corey a little bit, there was a lot of residential people that were connecting with us. Ones that were multiple big uses that were obvious, were not park, campers or people just hanging out in Thurston Park, they were blocked. Their IP addresses were blocked, so they can't use our Wi-Fi to support their business or their own home. And then I believe Corey had a problem with finding compatible equipment with the bad nodes that we were having problems with, and it was a complete system replacement, if I remember correctly.
At least 3 of them.
All 3 of them, yes.
And I check those weekly to make sure that there isn't somebody using it that's not supposed to.
What did we
There's a
spend?
specific,
I have not seen the bill on this yet.
it was like $1,200.
How much?
Well,
$1,200.
Are we still doing the monthly download of IP addresses? Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Leila?
No, I think Lyle's doing a pretty good job down there, so no complaints.
My report's rather brief. I will answer any questions anybody has regarding the governor's visit. As I'm sure you all are aware of, it was because of our project Rising Tide, and it was an invitation only at the request of the MEDC rep. And that's why it wasn't publicly announced to the council or anybody else, so. If anybody would like to ask me questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. And the rest of my month, last month, I have pursued the issue of the private well, which we will talk about shortly. And that'll clarify itself as we begin.
I do got a question with the Rising Tide program.
Okay?
And they just asking, some of us have been talking, some on council and other places. I believe it was 2 months ago, we received some information on it that kind of stated what was it MEDC that's doing this, that would give us the grant money, what the kind of projects that they thought were applicable and good projects, and there was parks, and there was streets, and there was signage, and there was there were some other things involved. And then I believe it was last month that you said that there was direction that, the money could only be, project specific, and it couldn't be piecemeal into multiple projects.
Correct.
Is this still the way we're looking?
I've lobbied to the contrary, but I haven't heard back yet.
Okay. Because my question, and what I would like to throw out there in that you being on the rising tide could maybe even take with them. Obviously, we have our park program going on. It's a huge project, probably one of the biggest ones we've done in a long time. It's gonna bring in jobs. It's gonna create, people coming to Central Lake. Would it benefit us, and I'm just throwing this out there, to take that grant money and use our matching funds? Put it totally in our park. Not taken away from the Rising Tide program and that committee, I'm not asking that. But then that satisfies the MEDC's commitment. It's a point project specific, money is paid. Now we take and we look, go back and we say, well, we were going to pull X amount from our 101. Now we tell the Rising Tide committee, you can pick multiple programs now because we can pull that from our 101, which can be spent anywhere. And we work that program, and that helps us in multiple ways. It satisfies the MEDC, it covers our cost on the grant project without hitting our 101, and we can slowly hit the 101 as the Rising Tide program is gonna be a work in progress, so we don't hit anything as hard. Would that be something you would consider taking with them?
Yes, but stipulate, I think it's another CDBG grant is what that $200,000 that they designate.
So it may not be able to be used.
We may not be able to say what it's used for. We may have to sit back and take it and tell, whatever they tell us to use it for.
It has to be used within the village limits.
Well, that's what I've lobbied against as well. If we could spread that out a little bit within the township, certainly, we might get farther. So, and take care of some other issues.
Out of curiosity, and just what is outside of the village that we would, I'm just curious, because I haven't been able to attend the Rising Tide meetings.
Outside the village, there is a complaint of high-speed internet that is not available. It is available. We have found that out. The infrastructure's all in for broadband. But it's cost prohibitive for a lot of folks to tap into, according to the current setup. So can we help some businesses, since this is an economic development project, can we help some businesses tap into that with that money, so they are up to speed and they can grow their business?
So are they small business like startups, is that what you're
No,
thinking?
no, they're larger businesses. So knowing the businesses that I do, I would ask the question, since this money would be planned and directed towards creating jobs and sustaining Central Lake, is these businesses having high-speed internet gonna bring more people to Central Lake and create jobs? That would be the question I would have to ask.
Yeah, and those are still questions that are being
Okay. As long as we're-
My understanding of the grant money is that it's to be used for infrastructure.
That's what we were told
That's
initially, but
it.
that was
It's
pretty
not,
loosely
not to
defined.
build another person's business. I don't know about that. I just know infrastructure is
That-
solid on
That is what they said, and that infrastructure was pretty loosely defined.
There's obviously still a lot of information that we don't know.
Correct.
Do they have a list of things that other people with this grant have done with the grants, and say, oh, this is
Nobody's
what?
done anything with this
Nobody's-
grant,
We're the only,
because
there's only.
the
there's
grant
10
doing it.
communities that get $200,000 regardless of size. And we don't get that money till December. But part of this project is to define our needs and project and market those things to the world ultimately. So how can we best use that money to help us do that? And I think that's the MEDC's goal, is to make sure that we take that and spend it the best way we can to set this project Rising Tide off on a good foundation and to move forward. So there's just too many unknowns at this point. I kind of wish they wouldn't have said that we were gonna get $200,000 at this stage, because we can't do anything till we get the money anyway. but what it has created was a bunch of questions in my mind, everybody else's mind. So I'm lobbying to get it, to be able to use it as broadly as we can use it, and hopefully we'll get some of that leeway. We'll probably have to give. But, and we may not be able to. They might just say, this is what you've got to use it for. We don't know that yet. It's all brand new. It's brand new on the state level, it's brand new on the local level. And we're just trying to sort all of those questions out, and I'm sure that we will.
As the rising tide receives more information from them and then none of these questions are answered, can the council get that information
Certainly,
next day or the day before, so we have time to really evaluate
certainly,
and come into a council meeting?
certainly.
Okay.
I would encourage anybody in this room to attend the Rising Tide meetings, as long as we're not at a quorum and we're not making decisions, you all could be there. I think the more input we have, the better.
It would be nice to get notification of those meetings.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to.
Yeah,
Can I make a comment about high-speed internet, just because, so my father's on a committee in Traverse City that's negotiating with Grand Traverse Power Line to bring 1 gig internet into downtown Traverse City at under market rate, because it's unaffordable there as well. And they're pretty close to a deal. And he actually asked me today if I would ask whoever's relevant here if, I don't know if it's Rising Tide, or you would be interested in talking to them. They're looking for a node, a more rural node to do, include in this project, because they recognize that more rural areas tend to be more underserved than downtown area. So I said I would bring it in, and their rates are, charter 1 gig rates are ridiculous, nobody buys those. And these are under market rate for regular 100 megabit speed. So those people are willing to come here and tell you what they're doing with Grand Traverse Power Line and see if you're interested in it. And that would be relevant to township probably as well,
Yeah.
with pulling fiber.
The last Rising Tide meeting had people from Charter and Michigan Connect were here. The next one, which is next Tuesday at 6 p.m., we'll have Frontier here, the president. Frontier is the only company right now that is, their five-year plan intends to expand our area. And some of that will take care of some of these other issues. But I've talked with Frankfurt, who just completed a project down there, and there's a government megahertz that they learned about and used, which no one else could compete with that. So
Frontier will never, they're gonna be charter, it's the same
Right.
story, they're
Right.
selling market rate, maximum market rate. They're not-
So
This is the if you look at what Nashville, Tennessee has done, the entire city of Nashville is on 1 gig, it's all utility sponsored, micros stuff, it's the same model. So
yes, please come bring us more info.
who would be interested in talking?
Tuesday at 6 o'clock would be a great time for that.
If I can, I'll come.
And our meetings are usually posted on our Facebook page.
I'll remind you.
We got somebody who can text you.
And that's all I had, unless somebody has some questions for me. Approval of bills, we have prepaids of $10,449.03, payroll of $6,190.76, payables at $28,552.74, total $45,192.53. Need a motion to accept the bills?
I'll move that motion, support.
Been moved and supported. Accept the bills. Any further questions? Roll call.
Conley,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Clark,
yes.
Patton,
Yes.
Tyler.
Yep.
Johnner,
Yes.
Becker.
Yes. New business, private well. Carolyn Dunlap is in the audience. She came to me earlier this month, and from the time she bought her house, which is on Rushton Road in the village, she has lost water pressure. And she's been trying to get resolution to this issue for the last 5 years. It started in 2010, as near as I can figure. I've asked the attorney to review our ordinances, and he also called DEQ to make sure. Her request was to be allowed to put in a private well. There's nothing in our ordinances that says that she cannot do that. We only have one restricted area, and that's up by the laundromat, east of the septic fields that we have out there. The only requirement is that the health department, and whoever goes to dig her well, the health department will require a letter from us authorizing for her to do that. So that's why we moved it to action items. We have looked at all the issues surrounding it. There was changes made that make improvements, but the bottom line is her house sits 75 feet higher than the water main and or fire hydrant. And when that happens, you lose pressure when you pump water uphill. So we don't feel that there's anything that can be done, and she feels that she should be allowed to drill a private well. So I'm gonna ask the council under action items for that to be the case. If anybody has any questions.
Yes, actually, I would.
Okay.
If I may, Miss Dunlap?
Yeah.
I was at your house and helped work on the issue the last time when it was there, and it was noticed when we were there doing a flow test that at one point there was an existing sub pump in place. Have you considered putting that back in at a cost savings rather than, a well's gonna cost you quite a bit of money. That sub pump that used to be there and supplied your sprinkler system in your house before could save you a lot of money to put that back in rather than drilling a well. But I'm just wanting you to know that that was an option for you if you weren't aware of it.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay, first of all, the issue's been an issue since 2007, and I bought the house in 2006, and my major issue right now, besides the pressure, is that I'm hooked up to the, my line was cut, and I'm hooked up to the fire hydrant. I don't want to be hooked up to the fire hydrant. I lose water pressure. It's illegal in most places. It isn't illegal here. That's why I want a well.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, we'll move on. Campsites at the top of the hill. We all received a sheet. I'm not sure what that sheet means, so somebody with more knowledge than I asked them to explain.
Lyle, you are in a better position to do that since you have laid it out.
Okay, I drew that up a couple weeks ago. That's Grove Street on the far end, the north end there, across from Site 35. Starting at Site 36, going south along the street. With one of our customers up there, we wheeled that off, and we figured we could take and put 5 sites on a diagonal from 36 up to Bradford. 30-foot wide, 55-foot long. We've had quite a bit of requests, a lot of requests for seasonal sites. Right now, I've got 3 of them in the campground that would take a seasonal site. So you put those 3 on seasonal sites across the road, that will free up the front side of that overlook area for more transit visitors. And will also take the bigger stuff off the lower and give them some room that they can function in. Right now, I've got one motorhome down there that's on Site 25. It's a 32-foot motorhome, and it reaches post to post. And that's what we're running. The units are so much better anymore. That website we got, the reservation center, the guy put a Site 20 down there 2 weeks ago. Well, I put the reservation on on site 20, the trailer was 36 foot long. The maximum I could get on there is 30 foot. We had to put a kitty corner in there to get it in there. I didn't have any other sites to use for that. We had a disgruntled camper because the big trailer, she felt infringed on her and so forth. It's getting to the point where the campground's too small for what we got, you know? The
Truck
use-
size is always gonna become an issue there.
And I put them on a diagonal there to take and allow for easy access. They drove down the street, they can just back in. I actually marked off 12 of them there. It's been suggested to maybe do that in 2 phases.
My concern with the ones in the back is the trailer parking for the boat residents, especially for the locals on the weekends.
It's,
If we fill
trailer
that,
parking is gonna be a
if
problem.
we fill that whole field up with sites, there's not gonna be any parking at all.
That's correct, and I don't know what the answer would be with that.
I
Well,
think
we were
those 5
talking
on
about
the front,
doing the first
I
5.
think those 5 on the front.
If we
would
could
be-
get those first 5 done, and maybe be ready for next year to open them up to those, we can wait on any further advancement on this stuff. And
I
give us
would
a
agree.
chance to see whether or not this would work.
I would agree these first 5 here, leave the ones along Herrick Street off for parking, and if we find that we're
Right.
having problems parking, we do own the property up at the bus garage, and we can always direct people there for both trailer truck parking.
The-
I mean, yeah, it's a little inconvenient, but at least it's an option for them.
That's, you know, we've got seasonal people right now, and there's, I could probably name 8 or 9 that has inquired about seasonal sites. I've got one coming in this week that's gonna be on the lakefront for a week, 10 days. Then she's gonna move up to Site 40 for 41 days. And she's from Beaverton, she's already asked for a summer site.
My other concern I have is with these running on a diagonal here, and there's 5 of them, starting next to site 36, running to the south, why would we've got a lot of dead space according to your map here. Would it be further off to square them up and take them 5 so we don't have that dead space that's just unusable?
Well, right now, that dead space probably be better to keep that, Joe. If we did put in those other sites up there, there might be a need for a small restroom up there. And you might be able to put one in that area.
And there's also a good sized maple and a cedar tree.
There's a-
Also good
yeah,
size,
there's-
too.
There's a cedar and a maple right in that area,
Okay,
Joe.
that makes some sense then, okay.
So,
But we don't wanna push our luck on that.
I,
I said, we don't wanna push our luck on that. If we get those 5 in, that gives us a good start.
yeah, and, you know,
So
I
what we're,
can see what we're doing down there, you guys can't, but, Rob, was there on this, there is a potential there. And, I would, depending on the cost, 3, maybe 5 years at the most, if they can recover on that. Maybe not even that long.
The first thing you gotta do is you gotta look at the cost of this.
yeah, that's where I was
guys.
just saying, so
We
we gotta
gotta
ask Sam.
put wastewater into these facilities. We also have to get hold of DEQ to get a permit to expand our campground. You might be 6 months out just on that, I'm
Right.
sure of that. There's a lot of costs. Then the next cost to you is the power that's coming from Consumers Power to your pole on the top of the hill now. Is that enough service, big enough wire coming in
Right.
to supply 5 or 6 more sites? So you've gotta take all that into consideration before you even think about putting this in. And so there could be a huge cost, may not.
Sam, can you look into seeing what the cost of putting 5 of them in for us would be?
All I can do is get a hold of the DEQ, and first thing I have to do is talk to Dave Walters. Jennifer Hodges is here, she knows what Dave Walters is like to deal with. And the
Well, she
first
said
thing he's
she
gonna
would
do
help.
is, everything will be by the book.
Right.
There's going to be a cost right up front, I'm sure. And also, you may have to get engineered drawings before we can even start this project, because it's a public campground.
But we can get a cost on everything, pretty
I
much
can-
at no cost, right?
Pardon?
Somebody's gonna kind of look at it and go, yeah, it's gonna cost you X amount to do this,
The
X amount to
co-
do that. Consumers is gonna say, yeah, we'll just put new power in and,
I can't speak for Consumers Power, I can speak for the wastewater, I will get a hold of Dave Walters, I will find out what he tells me, if it's feasible. Find out what 2, 3 septic tanks, depending on what they let us get away with, the cost of pumps to go in them, yes, I can get you a price and have the water. That's as far as I can go.
Now, is that something that we will have to hire somebody to do?
With it being a public campground, I'm not too sure you don't have to have engineered drawings.
I mean, to
Before you
hire,
could,
to
before
hire
they'll
a
even
contractor.
approve the permit to do the expansion.
I mean, is that something you guys can do
What's that, Brian?
to put the
labor.
sites in, or will we have to hire a?
No, that's something that we could do. You know, put the septic tanks in.
So we just gotta
I mean, all
hire a
the site work.
professional to figure the job out.
But I think the DEQ may, and it's real simple, I can call them and ask them, and they may require engineered drawings from, that stamp on that piece of paper to go any farther. That's
Sam,
the
that,
first
that,
step.
we couldn't hook those into our septic system down by the road, could
Yes,
we?
that's where they would tie
But we
into.
still have to have septic tanks?
Oh, yes. Yep. So there's a lot of, you know, the DEQ is the first place to go. Ask them questions, they may redirect us a different direction.
You would do that for us.
Yes, I can do that.
That's why this is in new business, not anywhere else. So it's unique.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam,
Sam,
bless
I'm
your
good
heart.
with that.
You gotta
Sam,
find-
Sam, do you have one of these drawings to be able to?
Yep,
He's got one.
Wiles already showed me, and everybody
Yeah.
showed
So
me.
Sam's gonna figure out the cost to do 5.
Yeah,
Now, the power, you're not gonna be able to find out, you
All I
said,
can
Sam?
do is call Consumers Power and
No, and ask.
say, will this service supply 5 more? If they say there's a cost, I'm gonna come back to you and say, what do you guys want to do?
There's the cost, okay,
Yep,
thank you.
so,
Well, that's a starting point.
Good.
We can see if
yeah, that's all this
it's
is.
feasible.
Okay, under new business auditors report, we've covered it through Joe's report, unless somebody else has any other questions. I just wanted to make sure that we would talk about it tonight, so that's why it's there. Action items, approve closing the side street, which is State Street to the west of Main, for Mammoth Distilling event. Chad, would you like to explain what you're doing?
Yeah, we're trying to do an after Labor Day grand opening still launch event on Saturday, 10th of September. I'd like to do it from 4 to 10, if that's possible.
What time was it again, Chad?
4 to 10.
Okay.
What day, Saturday, September 10th?
Correct. And I also have in front of you the MLCC is a form you need to approve with Scott as well. If you're interested in having the event, so we need a permit to have this. So it would be, we'd close the tasting room, use it just for tours and tastings inside, and then we'd have a small number of sample of mixed drinks available outside in front of our side door on State Street. Probably about having 2 food trucks, a band, and some games.
How far to the west were you looking?
M88 to Chestnut.
Okay.
So it blocks the alleys.
It would block the alleys in between.
And your license approves for the outdoor?
Right, so that's the application, you can have a
Special.
permit for 1 day outdoor.
Okay.
Scott would have to approve as well as you. We have non-breakable glass outside, we give silicone glasses, and there'd be ID checking and wristbands for everybody. It would be a 21 and over event only, just to get into the barricade space. And we barricade off all the way around it, and it wasn't street or building.
I make a motion to approve to close down the street.
I'll second it.
Been moved, supported, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried.
Absolutely.
Approve changes to Thurston Park grant project, start dates and cost savings. Jennifer, I'll throw that in to you.